Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Litera Volunteer Spotlight. We started this series because we wanted to highlight some of the amazing volunteer stories and work that our teammates are doing here at Litera. So this is the first episode. We are here talking to Linda Taverdi, who has an amazing story about her volunteer work. Hello, Linda.
Hi. Hi, Barry.
Would you mind telling us just a little bit about your time at Litera, what you do here, and a little bit about your background?
Sure. I have been with Litera for about a year and a half now. I started out as a transaction advisor, and I moved about 6 months ago to becoming a tech writer, which has been just a really happy move. I'm very happy with that role and that work. And my background is my background is just too long to go through, but I am a practicing lawyer. I just completed my CLE, barred in New York. I also have a PhD in history. I studied legal and constitutional history in the 19th century, so there's a little bit of that. And then I went to work at NYU Law School at a place called the Center on Civil Justice, where I sort of, at that point, really got into legal technology, and especially legal technology around access to justice. And I've been, had a foot or a hand in that space ever since. And that was like 2014. So been at it a little while.
Awesome. Congratulations on your success, and also thank you for your advocacy in that area. So moving forward into the volunteer work that you do, can you tell us a little bit about the organization that you're involved with?
Sure. So I volunteer for my own startup nonprofit. When I was at NYU Law School and was interested in legal tech, an organization called Blue Ridge Labs, which is a social tech incubator, social impact tech incubator. It's part of the Robin Hood Foundation. They have a fellowship every summer, and the summer that I became interested, they were looking for civil justice experts to help the tech teams. And that was just exactly right up the alley that I was had started traveling. So I went on leave from NYU to become a fellow. I completely fell madly in love with the space, gave my resignation, and then hung on in the dual role for a little while and stayed as a founder of an organization called Daisy Debt. And what Daisy Debt does is it automates the process of sending demand letters to debt buyers and debt collectors to help people sort out what they owe, if they owe, or to get debt buyers to leave them alone when they know they don't owe. And we automate that process so that people don't have to have a printer, they don't have to go to the post office, they can feel confident that they're doing the thing that needs to be done. So that's my thing.
Daisy Debt. It sounds awesome, and it's really impactful work. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges that people normally would face in a world without Daisy Debt?
Sure, absolutely. I will give you an example from my own life. And I'm a lawyer. I work in this space, and it's still been, difficult. I had several accounts with a telecom that shall remain nameless, but I'm not going to do the rhymes with. But they were not good. I did not like them. So I switched out and closed down all my accounts. Everything was shut down, zero balanced, and they're still taking money out of my account. I called, tried to resolve it. They don't know where it's coming from. They don't know why it's being drawn out, and they can't help me because I don't have an account number. I'm like, but I don't, you have to send me a bill so that I know what the account number is. Can't do anything about it. Escalate it to fraud. The bank says, oh yeah, this is wrong, and I got my money back. This telecom company then started sending me debt collection letters. So one of the things that's really important to me is understanding that just because someone calls it a debt does not mean it's a debt. It's not my debt. Doesn't even exist. It's not even a real thing. So what do you do? you can't work with the company anymore because they've already told you they can't. The amount is enough that someone might be motivated to go to small claims court. Then what do you do? What do you do? Well, if you know about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, you would know that all you have to do is send a letter saying, put up or shut up. Pardon my French. Show me your evidence, show me where this claim is coming from. Tell me why you're trying to collect it from me, or leave me alone. And you have to, because it's the law. Easy thing to do. The problem is, who knows that that's the thing to do? So what most people do is nothing. And then if they get sued and they don't show up, or they don't know how to defend themselves, they can be on the hook for a judgment, which is not so easy to get rid of. So that's what. Now that you have Daisy Debt, you can walk through the little questionnaire, determine whether you fall under the FDCPA. Hit send. We automatically send the letter using a trackable method, U.S. Postal Service's barcode information, and then and it's just one short questionnaire, and it click to hit send. No printer. No, I know I sound like a commercial, but all these things are really important. Mm-hmm. And it's a simple tool, but it's also one that's just the beginning. It's the MVP. I'm thinking about what are the next set of tools that we add on, that we iterate and add on the features. Mm-hmm.
So I imagine, I could see that one of the biggest heavy lifts here is the legal language in the letter, how to actually advocate for yourself in that way. And Daisy Debt does a ton of that for you, right?
Yep, all of it. So yes, and it can be a form letter, but if you don't know the form, you don't know what to put in it. The tool itself has conditional logic built into it. So you can choose from a menu of different options depending on what your situation is. So if you're absolutely certain the debt does not belong to you, you can have one chunk of text built into your letter. If you want to tell them to stop calling you, you can have another chunk. If you know that the debt was discharged in bankruptcy and therefore not collectible anymore, you can do that. So the conditional logic makes the letter easily tailorable, and the way that the sort of secret sauce has been trying to figure out how to ask the questions to get. I don't want to ask, do you want to put this language in there? I want to ask, is this your situation? So that I know what language to put in there, and that's sort of what we're trying to do.
That makes sense. Yeah. What a valuable tool, because it can be, I imagine this situation is not at all uncommon. It can even be difficult to find out that you are in this situation. And then from there, I know that before we talked about this, I didn't know that these were the steps that you needed to take. So. Right.
And yeah, it's really a highly complex space, because you're talking about there are different regulations and laws that apply to the original creditor, which is, the company you did business with, versus a debt buyer. And I think lots of people now know that companies buy debt, that are in the business of buying spreadsheets full of debt claims. Mm-hmm. That seems to be more generally known, but just exactly what that means, what it is. The debt claims are only as good as the data that's in the spreadsheets, and the data that's in the spreadsheets isn't good. But with that little bit of information, companies are allowed to put it on your credit report. They're allowed to make phone calls. They're allowed to to a certain extent, contact your relatives and your employers, and they're allowed to really kind of dig around and try to figure out how they can reach you, even if they're not at all sure that it's a real debt, or that if it is, it belongs to you.
So in your telecom example, you were saying that because you didn't have an account anymore, there was no account number tied to that debt. I'm guessing that these companies that buy debt off people, they are not buying account numbers. They probably have none of that information and are just waiting to be kind of called on it.
Yeah. So one of the sort of insidious things about this is you buy a spreadsheet full of information, and then you can do a whole bunch of investigating to try to put together basically a persona. Like, who is this person? You can do a hard pull on their credit or a soft pull on their credit report, so that you can start to see, did they buy a car in the past year? Did they buy a house in the past year? So someone who legitimately may have fallen on hard times has clawed their way back out. The debt buyer will just sit and wait and see that they're starting to prosper. And that's when they'll start making the phone calls and start chasing it down. But they can also build out this whole persona and decide that, this is the person that owes this debt without even knowing whether it's just lines in a spreadsheet. So they can, it isn't like a history or an account or anything. It's just lines on a spreadsheet, literally. This is fraudulent, but debt buyers have been known to just pad the spreadsheet a little bit with fake information and then sell it to the next person. It's just that easy and that unreliable.
Wow. And the fact that there's such a clear solution and you're helping raise awareness and provide that easily is just awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. Well, we're trying. It's trying. Again, the hard part is always getting the tool into people's hands. Helping them diagnose that helping them understand that this is the antidote to the problem.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's all about people, and it's all about understanding how people engage with the world and with the tools, and that's the fascinating part.
Yeah. So we already covered a fair amount of what you do there. Certainly you are the founder and you are definitely running the show, and you are behind the scenes of the product itself. Can you talk a little bit more about what you do with Daisy Debt, maybe aside from that, or in a little bit more detail?
Well, I'm going to answer your question how I want to answer it. Slightly different way that you asked. It's a whole trick. One of the things that I'm trying to do and trying to understand is how to build sophisticated tools with no-code solutions. So a lot of what I do that isn't just straight up, like I had a conversation earlier this week with someone who's interested in the tool itself, but maybe adding on a few extra features. And so, but in addition to just that kind of work, thinking about like how can you leverage the tiny IT budgets and tech budgets of legal service organizations, and the how can you leverage those limited resources. And what I'm becoming more and more convinced of is that there are wonderful no code and low code tools that will allow people to build fast, iterate fast, and also maintain. Like, I can't maintain an AWS instance. I could probably learn, but I don't have the time. But I can definitely build and maintain on, for example, my friends at Afterpattern. I use their tools. I use Zapier. I use Airtable, which is an amazing open source database platform. DocAssemble. These are shout outs to people who've been working in this space for a long time and are doing amazing work. Jonathan Pyle is a legal aid attorney in Philadelphia, and on his own time, he built something called DocAssemble, and there are all kinds of legal access to justice tools being built on this open source software. So breaking it down into the component pieces so that the legal service organizations can build tools easier, cheaper, simpler, easier to maintain, that sort of thing. When I have spare time, I think about that a lot.
That is awesome. I love to hear that there are solutions kind of specifically geared toward helping legal services increase access to justice, just like you said. And I would also like to say, while you're talking about these no-code solutions, that daisydebt.org, everyone should visit. It is a beautiful website and interface. I can't show it on the interview, but it is awesome. So just wanted to shout that out there. Okay, so, and this is another one that we may have covered a little bit, but the kind of challenges that you and the Daisy Debt are facing, and some of the rewarding sides, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's always the challenge of just, resources, limited resources, time, money, whatever. There's also there's also the issue of sustainability. One of the things that's important to me is that it be sustainable, so that there needs to be some, thinking about revenue models and things like that. But of course, just constantly trying to improve on the usability portion. How do we make this usable? Hang on, I lost my train of thought. What was the question again? Because I had it. There was something I was sort of teed up, and I was like, oh.
Yeah. The challenges that you or Daisy Debt face, and then the things that are rewarding about it.
Oh yes. Okay. So, just one of the challenges is not technical. It's not organizational, and that is this sort of what, to borrow a phrase, this sort of implicit bias or implicit assumption that if you say debt, somebody owes money. Somebody owes somebody money. Where there's smoke, there's fire. They wouldn't be making these debt claims out of the blue if there wasn't something there. And that's actually just not true. It's not always true. It's rarely 100% true. There's almost always some negotiable piece of that. There's some reason why this if a debt is real, it didn't get paid in full. And then also just on the flip side, the people who do run into difficulty and then they want to pay their debts, what I'd love for them, what's challenging is to help them understand that if you are paying this old debt, you're not making good with the person that you originally borrowed from. So this kind of notion that they just sort of their credibility owes it to the world to pay somebody off so that they can rest their conscience. And that kind of moral valence in this space is something that, yeah, sure, everybody should pay their debts, but it's business. It's business. There are business models. People wouldn't be doing this if there wasn't a way to make money. And trust me, debt buyers make money. So those are challenging things, like just trying to help people understand sort of what it is exactly that we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. And then I know we kind of we've covered the rewards a little bit, just in kind of showing people that debt doesn't make you a bad person and that there are options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that for sure. I mean, I helped a while back a gentleman who had been incarcerated, and he had been out and leading a very productive life. But before he went in, his car was repossessed while he was incarcerated. Understandable. The company sold it, and then there was money still owed. And I don't know, 15 years later, somebody's coming after him for the debt. And just being able to just working with people and talking to them and saying, hey, listen, you're fine. You're going to be good. This statute of limitations is long past, and here's what it is. And that's wonderful. But the other piece of it, too, is just being a part of that legal tech, access to justice legal tech community. I mean, there's some amazing people, and I've been friends with them now for a long time, and they're doing much more impressive things than I am, but I get to go along for the ride and see what they're doing, and to be a part of the process and the product. So that really does give me joy.
Mm-hmm. And it seems like the different people in the community are all looking for how to help each other, how they can all lift people up together.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, my favorite example that I already mentioned was, Jonathan Pyle built this open source doc assemble. My friends at Community Lawyer, now After Pattern, built this incredibly useful app builder tool that that lawyers, anybody can subscribe. You can do it even for free if you want. So they built something. The Felicity Conrad and Kristen Sonde, I've known them since I was at NYU Law School, with Paladin. There's just, yeah. So it's a lot of people. It's a community of people. There's a little bit of, there should be competition, but it's cooperation. That's lovely. I mean, it's great. It sounds very kumbaya, but honestly, it really is.
It is. It's actually just amazing to hear about people who go beyond. Like, these people came together and went beyond, okay, we can make an app to help people too. We can make an app builder for people to build apps to help people. Yeah. That really increases it by an order of magnitude,
Yeah. I'm a huge fan of the After Pattern company, because it's not just that they built something really useful and cool. They were so agile about how they worked out what they did. They were patient. And they did really great user feedback, and they've just built a wonderful company. So, and I rely on them really heavily. So I'm very happy that they're out there.
I'm also happy. So moving forward, what do you wish people understood or knew about Daisy Det and the work that you do?
Well, I mean, the big thing, I always say that I need to write this, we need to have a conversation about debt. So that's the big one, is what are we talking about here? Because one of the reasons that's important to me is running into the sort of like, I've had people say, well, that's not a nonprofit. That's not a thing you want to help people with. They need to pay their debts. And, so that's a big one, and it's not. So I can get down into the weeds on this topic. The other thing is how the debt collection industry is leveraging our public court system to robofile debt cases, and really relying on the fact that people are terrified and don't have lawyers, so that they're not going to show up and you're going to be able to get a default judgment, then really turn something ephemeral into a concrete, block that you can hit people with. So, I mean, those are so there isn't that. Daisy Det is pretty straightforward. It's a really simple tool that does a lot. It leverages a lot, accomplishes a lot with little. So that part, it's simple. It's the whole industry that we're trying to use this little lever to nudge into a fairer direction. Honestly, it would make me really happy if the debt collection industry wasn't so profitable. And so people use it more judiciously.
I love those points. Yeah. What can we do to get involved, if anything?
Well, of course, you can always donate. We're fiscally sponsored by an organization called the Social Good Fund, which is also another great organization. They provide fiscal sponsorship for nonprofit startups, which is basically unheard of. So again, Social Good Fund, you can also donate to them. But if anybody's looking to help and they have just a little bit of tech experience and want to sometimes it's hard for me to connect the Zapier with the Airtable and do exactly what I need to do. That would be amazing. If anybody wants to do user testing and just go in and build the letter, I'll spot you the $1.50 that it costs to send the letter, and just give me feedback on the experience. Those are things that would be super helpful, and I would really appreciate it.
That is awesome. Yeah, I know that I, for one, am interested in getting involved. I think it's not only a cool product, but we just talked through the impact, and it's immense. So it would be awesome to get involved in a project like this. Thank you again for what you do.
Sure. And it's daisydebt.org.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
yeah,
we definitely want to
there
get
is
that
a Daisy there is a daisydebt.org, but we built the original Daisy Debt for financial coaches, but now I'm trying, and you have to have credentials to get in, trying to broaden the scope and make this accessible to people so they don't have to go through a financial coach to be able to use the tool. So daisydebtapp.org.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for specifying that. And if I might ask you one final question, thought it would be just kind of fun to ask you, what brings you joy?
In general?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What brings me joy is two things. One, most important thing are my people and my animals. If COVID taught us a lot of very, very harsh lessons, but the beautiful lesson that it taught me that I already knew, but yeah, now just in a way that's to my bones, down to my toes, is how the people that are in my life and that I are just the most important thing, period. Full stop. And then also how much being outside in nature matters a lot. So what brings me joy is hiking with my little dog. Hiking with my little dog, or going or having drinks by the fire pit outside, or that's everything. That's everything.
I love it. That is a great answer, and a great reminder, I think, for me and everyone. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining and talking through the volunteer work. It's so awesome that we get to highlight these sorts of efforts. If anyone has any interest, feel free to reach out to us at Litera or check out daisydebtapp.org. It has been lovely speaking with you. So I'm Barrett. That is Linda. Thanks again.